Hey guys, I'm Stephanie Gold, and in celebration of Papertrey Ink coming out with our brand new medium gray colored cardstock, I've got a fun little video for you guys today showing you a card that I made with it.
Hey all, how excited are you guys that we finally have a medium gray for you? On the design team, we were all completely stoked when we got these suckers in the mail, and I could not wait to show you guys a project with it. So I'm starting out here with 2 pieces of A2 sized of the medium gray, the new gray, which is not officially have a title yet. But if you go to the Papertrey blog right now, you'll see a fun little contest in naming it. But I put one of the panels right through my die cut machine with the cover plate twist to start out with. And I'm using a little bit of Tombow Mono adhesive, and I'm just going to adhere it right on top of that other panel and then set it aside to dry. Next, I'm going to get the new Stitching Garden Stamp and Die set by Betsy Veldman. If you guys don't have this set yet, goodness gracious, you need it. It is beautiful. I decided that I was going to die cut my pieces first, which I did here, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my ink colors ready and start my stamping. And of course I have to mention that the white cardstock I'm using is the Papertrey Ink Stamper Select White, which in my opinion is the best white cardstock to stamp on. If you haven't tried it yet, definitely give this one a try. So I'm stamping my very first layer of this flower with the Pale Peony ink, and then I'm going to get my second layer ready, and I'm going to use the same color, the Pale Peony, to stamp right on top of my first layer for those accents. Now for the center of my flower, I wanted to use something a little more antique colored than a bright yellow or another bright color. So I went with the fine linen to stamp the center of this floral piece, and you'll see me use fine linen in different areas throughout the rest of my stamping. The next piece I'm going to stamp is this triple little flower, and I'm going to stamp the base portion first using Sweet Blush ink. I know some people who think Sweet Blush is just a little bit too light of a color, but I think it is just a gorgeous base color when you're doing multi-step stamps and when you want something that's really subtle for an accent. Now to bring it up a notch, I'm going to use the Pale Peony right on top of it, and you can see how already it pops right away when you stamp with that on top of it. And again, for the center of my flowers, I am going to use my fine linen ink. It gives it a little bit more of a weathered, antique-ish type of look as opposed to the really, really bright pop of color you could use instead. Now for my next floral, I am actually going to start my stamping using Smoky Shadow ink. Now this is one color that, I mean, it is a gray, but it looks so beautiful next to the new medium gray cardstock. You are going to want to pair these things as little accents and whatnot all the time. And to keep this floral a little bit different than the other two, I'm going to stamp my top portion in fine linen, but I'm not going to add any pinks to this one. I'm just going to keep it at that fine linen and the smoky gray colors. And for the next piece that I'm going to be stamping is this beautiful set of leaves, and I'm going to do the exact same thing here that I did with my previous stamp, and that's going to be starting with the fine linen and then using the smoky shadow as well. So we're going to leave the pinks out of this piece as well. The way that this one turned out is a little bit darker than you might be used to or comfortable with, but you have to remember what the overall finished look, excuse me, is going to be when you're done. So it's not just going to be this card with this very dark looking leaf. It's going to be this beautiful floral that might have this dark accent right underneath it or tucked into it, and it's going to help build your design and put everything together. So the last piece of stamping I'm going to show you here today is the largest flower, and my base layer, which is the most solid layer, is going to be in Sweet Blush first. Now my second most solid layer on this flower, I'm actually going to stamp in the fine linen. Now this turns out so beautifully. You may think it's a weird combination to put together, but when you put this fine linen on top of the sweet blush, they blend together and make this almost tea colored. That's so beautiful, especially once you put the final layer on top, which is the most intricate and detailed stamp. And I'm going to use the smoky shadow to give a really, really bold and a really, really easy to see definition in this top layer of our floral. So now once I stamped this flower and I loved how much it turned out, I actually decided to go back to my original smaller flower and redo that top intricate layer and put it in the smoky shadow as well, so you could really, really, really see all the details, each and every detail on the beautiful design that Betsy had drawn together. Now this last little bit of floral stamping I want to show you all before we put our card together are these 3 little leaves, and the reason I wanted to show you this is because I decided to stamp my leaves in the sweet blush first, which is not your typical leaf color, and I just kind of want to stretch you outside of the box a little bit and get your minds working as to that you don't always have to use the exact greens and browns and yellows that you typically see on a leaf or on any kind of foliage. I'm going to go in here now with this fine linen and get more of that tea color like we made previously on our large rose. And I'm going to do the same thing here where I stamp my top layer with the smoky shadow. So this is just another way to show you guys how we use these 3 colors, the sweet blush, the fine linen, the smoky shadow, as well as actually the 4th color, the pale peony. And I use them in different ways on each piece of stamping in each leaf and each flower, and every one of them, though they might not use all the same colors, completely coordinate and tie each other together. Now for my sentiment today, I'm using the Ways to Say Hello die, which is a really, really fun die, large and intricate and beautiful. And I'm going to cut a piece of it out of Stampers Select White. So I'm going to use the really good cardstock on this, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. So before I die cut it, I'm actually going to use some Distress ink, and I'm going to use my mini blender, and I'm just going to do a little bit of blending on the piece that I know I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of an antique tea bag stained kind of look. Now I'm not going to go too crazy on the Distress inks right now. I just want to put just enough just so you can see it and have it show up. Once you're all set with that, go ahead and run it through your die cut machine. Use a metal shim if you need to because it is a more intricate die. And then go ahead and pull it off the die and get ready for the next piece of distressing. This time I'm going to be using a little bit of a darker color, and again, we're not going to have it be perfect. We're just going to do just a little bit here and there. I don't want to make it a perfectly outlined or perfectly vignetted. I just want a little bit here and a little bit there so it kind of looks random and haphazard. And once I finished with that darker color, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to use Sweet Blush now. So I bring a little bit more of that pink in to kind of coordinate with the flowers we stamped. And once our sentiment is complete, we're going to bring all the pieces back together, starting with our base layer, and we are going to adhere using dimensional adhesive all of our florals and our sentiment, and we're going to have a little twine ready too because I'm going to use some twine on there to tie everything together. Now I am using probably 3 different types of adhesive when I'm getting these flowers on here because I want them to all have different dimensions. I'm using the foam tape for the ones I really want to pop up. I'm using the Tombow Mono liquid adhesive for the ones that I'd like to sit but kind of be able to move a little bit. And then I'm going to use some scored tape for the ones I really want to stick in one small portion, and I'll be able to bend the edges really, really well on those and kind of lift them up for more dimension and texture. Now before I go any further, the next thing I want to do is get my card base ready, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere this cover panel right on top of my card base. I'm going to use score tape for it because score tape works the best for this, at least in my opinion, out here in Arizona. So I use 2 little bits, one at the top, one at the bottom, pull the pieces off, and go ahead and put that layer right on top. Before I adhere my sentiment, I'm actually going to use a piece of natural twine and tie right around my card base, and I'm going to tie it in front of these beautiful flowers, and just to coordinate and pull the whole thing together, and just tie them in a knot. You could definitely tie them in a bow if you like to. The hippie in me likes to have just free-flowing knots here and there as well, so I'm just going to leave this one as is. Now to adhere my sentiment, I'm just going to use a little bit of this Tombow Mono liquid adhesive. I'm only going to put it on the bottom though, because I really want the top parts, those little loops on the H and the L's, to flow and be a little bit free and just kind of add that added texture and dimension by being a little bit of floating up there. I like to use my acrylic blocks to add a little bit of weight on adhesive when I know I want it to dry a little bit faster than normal. It's a fun little trick that I like to use. But when I'm all set and done, I fold my card base and off I go. Thank you all so much for stopping by today. I've really had fun showing you guys this. I hope you're as excited as we all are about this medium grade cardstock, and I will see you soon. Bye.